My beloved child, something happened last night that I have been waiting for you to understand, and I need you to listen carefully because the next few moments may change the way you look at everything that has been happening around you. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and I do not want you to miss the one detail that connects everything together. Last night, while the world around you was quiet and ordinary, something shifted in a way you could not see with your eyes. It was not loud. It did not arrive with a warning. There was no dramatic announcement, no obvious sign, and yet something important began moving behind the scenes of your life. You may have felt restless for no reason. You may have awakened suddenly, stared into the darkness, or felt a strange sense that something was different. Perhaps you dismissed it and went back to sleep. But what if that feeling was not meaningless? What if it was the beginning of an answer you have been waiting for much longer than you realize? Don't skip, because the next part matters. There is a reason this message found you at this exact moment. There is a reason your attention stopped here when you could have continued scrolling. And there is a reason the words you are hearing now may feel strangely personal. Something huge is waiting for you, but before I reveal what happened last night, you need to understand what came before it. You have been carrying questions that you rarely speak about. You have smiled while wondering when things would finally change. You have continued moving forward while secretly asking yourself whether all your patience had meaning. You have watched certain doors remain closed while other people seemed to move ahead effortlessly. You have wondered why your moment was taking so long. But last night, something happened that makes those unanswered questions look completely different. Stay till the end, because the final revelation is connected to something you thought was already finished. There is a moment in every person's journey when silence begins to feel different, and I believe you are standing at that moment now. Listen closely, because this is where the story begins to take an unexpected turn. For a long time, you may have believed that nothing was happening because you could not see anything happening. You measured progress by visible results, immediate answers, obvious changes, and clear signs. But not everything important announces itself when it begins. Some of the biggest changes begin quietly, almost invisibly, before they become impossible to ignore. Last night was one of those moments. Something moved from uncertainty toward possibility. Something that had been delayed began approaching its appointed moment. And the most surprising part is this: you may already have noticed a small clue without realizing what it meant. Maybe it was a thought that suddenly entered your mind. Maybe it was a memory you had not considered in years. Maybe it was a name, a place, a message, a dream, a feeling, or an unexpected coincidence that made you pause. You may have called it random. But sometimes a tiny moment becomes meaningful only after the larger picture appears. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and I want you to hear the entire message before deciding what last night meant. There is a reason your story has felt slower than expected. There is a reason certain things did not happen when you wanted them to. And there is a reason you are being asked to remain patient even when patience feels exhausting. You thought the delay meant rejection. You thought the silence meant nothing was coming. You thought the closed chapter was the end. But what if the delay was actually creating space for something you could not have received earlier? What if the silence was not emptiness, but preparation? Keep listening, because we are getting closer to the part that will make you understand why I said I cannot stay calm anymore. Here is the part one need you to remember: not every ending is an ending. Sometimes what looks like a final goodbye is actually a transition into something completely unexpected. You may have experienced a season where people changed, opportunities disappeared, plans failed, and expectations collapsed one after another. You may have asked, "Why did this happen to me?" Yet there is another question you may never have considered: what was this making room for? That question changes everything. Because sometimes life removes what you were holding onto so tightly because you were never meant to remain there forever. Last night, something connected to your next chapter began becoming clearer. You do not need to force it. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone. You simply need to remain alert enough to recognize the moment when it arrives. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and there is one more layer you have not heard yet. You have spent so much time wondering whether you were forgotten that you may have overlooked how much you have already survived. Think about it. There were moments you believed you would never get through, yet you did. There were days you thought would break you, yet somehow you kept moving. There were nights when you had no clear answer, yet morning still came. You are here because the story was not over. And perhaps that is the greatest clue of all. If your story were finished, you would not be standing at this moment. Something remains unfinished. Something remains unresolved. Something is still moving toward you. And last night may have been the quiet beginning of the moment you have been waiting for. Now I want you to picture something carefully, because this is where the message becomes more personal. Imagine that the answer you have been asking for has already begun forming, but it has not yet reached the surface of your life. Imagine that while you were wondering why nothing was changing, circumstances were quietly rearranging themselves. One conversation could be happening somewhere. One decision could be taking shape. One opportunity could be moving closer. One person could be reconsidering something. One door that seemed permanently closed could be preparing to open in a way you never expected. You do not know which detail will become the turning point, and that is exactly why you must stay attentive. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The most powerful changes are often recognized only in hindsight. One day you look backward and realize that the strange delay, the unexpected meeting, the disappointing answer, and the quiet night were all connected. Last night may become one of those moments. You may eventually say, that was the night everything started changing. But right now, you are still inside the story, so you cannot see the complete picture. That is why you must not judge your future by the appearance of your present. A quiet chapter can still contain a powerful beginning. A slow season can still lead somewhere extraordinary. And an unanswered question can still have an answer approaching from a direction you never considered. There is something I want you to notice today. The strongest sign may not be outside you. It may be the sudden return of hope inside you. If you have recently felt a small spark returning after a long period of uncertainty, do not dismiss it. Sometimes hope returns before circumstances change because your heart is preparing to recognize what is coming. But wait, because there is another detail about last night that makes this even more remarkable. There was a moment when everything seemed ordinary, yet something about the timing was different. You may not have known why, but your mind became unusually alert. Perhaps you remembered something from your past. Perhaps you suddenly thought about a dream you had abandoned. Perhaps you felt compelled to reconsider a decision you had already made. Perhaps you simply felt that you needed to hear something different today. Whatever the reason, you are here now, and I want you to stay with me. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. There are moments when a person reaches a crossroads without seeing the road signs. The choice does not always appear as a dramatic decision. Sometimes it appears as a quiet realization. I cannot continue living exactly the way I have been living. Maybe last night was the moment that realization became stronger. Maybe something inside you finally became tired of waiting for permission to believe in a better future. Maybe you realize that your past does not have unlimited authority over your future. And maybe the greatest revelation is not that something is coming toward you, but that you are becoming ready to receive it. Think about how different that is. You have been asking when your circumstances will change, but perhaps another transformation has already begun. You are changing. Your standards are changing. Your perspective is changing. Your patience is becoming wisdom. Your disappointments are becoming lessons. Your silence is becoming strength. And the person who emerges from this season may be far more prepared for the next chapter than the person who entered it. There is a hidden connection here that I do not want you to miss. The thing you thought was holding you back may actually have been teaching you something essential. The waiting taught you patience. The uncertainty taught you discernment. The disappointment taught you what truly matters. The distance taught you who genuinely belongs in your life. The silence taught you to listen differently. And now, something is shifting because you are no longer the same person who once begged for the old version of your life to return. You have grown beyond it. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and I need you to hear this carefully. Sometimes the breakthrough you want cannot arrive until you become capable of carrying it without losing yourself. That may be why the timing felt so strange. You were not simply waiting for an opportunity. You were being prepared for responsibility. You were not simply waiting for an answer. You were learning how to handle the answer. You were not simply waiting for a new chapter. You were becoming someone who could live differently once that chapter began. Last night may have marked a quiet line between who you were and who you are becoming. You may not notice the difference immediately. But one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you will look back and understand why certain things had to unfold exactly as they did. And when that realization comes, you may finally stop asking, "Why did it take so long?" Because you will understand that the timing was part of the message. Listen to this next part with your full attention, because this is where the suspense becomes deeper. There is something you have been waiting to hear, but you may have been expecting the answer to arrive in a familiar form. You expected a specific person, a specific opportunity, a specific message, a specific outcome. But what if the answer does not look like the picture you created in your mind? What if the greatest surprise is that the thing coming next is better because it is different? Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. You have to leave room for the unexpected. The universe of possibilities is much larger than the plan you made when you were younger. Sometimes we become so attached to one outcome that we fail to recognize a better direction standing directly in front of us. Last night, something may have shifted precisely because you are being redirected away from what you thought you wanted and toward what you actually need. That is why this moment may feel confusing before it feels exciting. New beginnings are not always comfortable at first. Sometimes they begin with uncertainty. Sometimes they begin with a question. Sometimes they begin with the sudden realization that the old path no longer feels right. If you have felt that recently, do not panic. You may not be losing your way. You may be discovering a new one. And there is a reason I keep telling you not to skip. The most important part has not arrived yet. The clue is coming closer, and once you recognize it, you may understand why last night matters so much. Now, remember one thing from everything you have heard so far. Your life is not defined by the chapter that hurt you the most. It is not defined by the opportunity you missed, the person who walked away, the plan that failed, or the season when nothing seemed to make sense. Your future is still open. There are pages you have not read. There are conversations you have not had. There are mornings you have not experienced. There are opportunities you cannot yet see. And there are versions of yourself you have not yet met. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. If you have been feeling that something is about to change, pay attention without becoming afraid. You do not need to know every detail. You only need to remain present. The next step may be smaller than you expect. It may be one decision, one honest realization, one new direction, one unexpected opportunity, one moment when you finally say yes to something you once doubted. The turning point does not always arrive wearing a crown. Sometimes it looks like an ordinary Tuesday. Sometimes it sounds like a simple sentence. Sometimes it begins with a thought that refuses to leave your mind. And sometimes it starts with a quiet night when everyone else is asleep and something inside you finally wakes up. Perhaps that is what happened last night. Perhaps the biggest thing that happened was not outside you at all. Perhaps something inside you finally became ready to believe again, and now we are approaching the part one have been leading you toward from the beginning. Last night was not about fear. It was not about something terrible. It was about realization. It was about the possibility that a chapter you believed was closed may not have been the final chapter after all. Something you thought was lost may simply be taking a different route back into your life. Something you thought was impossible may be closer than you realize. And something you stopped expecting may arrive when your expectations are at their lowest. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and I want you to hold on to this final thought from part one. The biggest surprise may not be what happens next, but what you suddenly understand about everything that happened before. One day, you may look back at the delays, the unanswered questions, the quiet nights, the unexpected changes, and the moments when you almost gave up, and you may realize that they were not separate events. They were pieces of one larger story. Last night may have been another piece falling into place. The door has not opened completely yet, but something has changed. The silence is no longer the same. The waiting is no longer meaningless. The story is moving. So don't skip the next part. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and the next revelation will take this story even deeper. What happened last night may have been only the beginning, because the real meaning of that moment has not been revealed yet. My beloved child, something happened last night that I have been trying to put into words, and before you do anything else, I need you to listen carefully, because there is a reason you found this message at this exact moment. Do not skip, stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you, and the next few minutes may reveal something you have been quietly sensing for longer than you realize. Last night, everything felt unusually still. The world around you may have looked exactly the same, but something inside the story of your life shifted. It was not loud. It did not arrive with a warning. There was no dramatic announcement, no obvious sign placed directly in front of your eyes. It was subtle, almost invisible, and yet powerful enough to change the direction of what comes next. That is why I cannot stay calm anymore. There is something you need to know. You have been walking through a season where so much seemed uncertain, where answers appeared late, where doors seemed to close without explanation, and where you may have wondered whether all the effort, patience, and silent strength were actually leading anywhere. But what if the silence was not the end of the story? What if the delay was creating space for something you were not ready to recognize before? Think about the moments you almost gave up. Think about the nights when you smiled during the day and then became completely honest with yourself when nobody was watching. Think about the promises you made to yourself and the dreams you stopped talking about because protecting them from disappointment felt easier than believing again. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything changes. Something has begun moving beneath the surface. You may not see the entire picture yet, but you are closer to an important turning point than you think. And I need you to stay with me, because the most important part has not been revealed. Do not scroll away simply because nothing dramatic has appeared yet. Sometimes the biggest changes begin quietly, long before the evidence becomes visible. A message can be written before it is sent. A decision can be made before anyone announces it. A new path can exist before your first step reveals it. And right now, your story may be standing in that exact space between what was and what is about to become. There is a reason your attention landed here. Maybe you have been asking yourself whether things can truly change. Maybe you have been wondering if another chapter can begin after everything you have experienced. Maybe you have become so accustomed to waiting that you almost forgot what hope feels like. But something about last night reminds us of one powerful truth. The future does not always announce itself before it arrives. Sometimes it begins as a feeling. Sometimes it begins as a sudden realization. Sometimes it begins with one ordinary moment that later becomes the moment you remember and say, "That was when everything started to change." Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and I am not saying that to make you curious for a few more seconds. I am saying it because there is a deeper message hidden inside what happened. You have spent too long measuring your future by your present circumstances. You looked at what was missing and assumed it meant nothing was coming. You looked at the closed door and assumed there were no other doors. You looked at the delay and assumed you had been forgotten. But life has a strange way of preparing people in places they never expected to be prepared. Sometimes the waiting develops your strength. Sometimes the silence teaches you discernment. Sometimes disappointment teaches you what success could never teach you. And sometimes, when you finally stop chasing every answer, you become ready to recognize the answer that has been approaching all along. So breathe for a moment. Put everything else aside. Give yourself these next few minutes. Do not skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and the reason this message feels different may be because you are finally ready to hear what you could not hear before. There is a chapter of your life that has been asking to close, not because it was meaningless, but because it has completed what it needed to teach you. You cannot carry every old fear into a new beginning. You cannot keep asking for a new life while constantly negotiating with the habits, doubts, and memories that belong to the old one.